4. None. Number 3, consider an act on request for adjustments to relief from specific charges imposed by the district. Mike, you got anything? Anything? Nothing? Okay. The consent agenda. Do we have anything that needs to be removed from the consent agenda for further discussion?
I just have a couple of items I want to point out on page 5.
Which items are they
That's,
referred to?
Just a review again of the bulk water purchases. Our percentage of cost to sales year to date is 87%, and that's up from 76% last year. So that's an 11-point increase. And of course, we have the water study going on, water rate study going on. So obviously anxious for some preliminaries on that. The bulk sewer, we're year to date 99.6% compared to 96 last year. So another 3-point decay there. And the merchant service processing is $44,000 year to date. That's up 45% over last year. And I would assume all the other MUDs are consistent with that. So don't have visibility into that. So, but just for ours alone, it's significant. That's all I have.
Okay. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
And a second. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Number 10, receive and act upon staff information regarding the upcoming MCAD Board of Directors election for the term of office January 1st of next year through December of 25.
Last month I reported that Metro Mud had made in the first step in saying they were interested in participating. They did. The next step is to nominate a nominee, and they did that this week as well. They nominated Arthur Bredehoff for the potential special districts or special utility position. So there is no action for you to take unless you would like to nominate a different nominee.
Do we have such a nomination? Hearing none. Arthur's our man.
Appreciate the support.
Okay, number 11, receive the Sanjak report. Chris?
Good afternoon. We have a few things to cover, so I'll try to be brief. If you have any questions, just let me know. I'd like to go through. So, first item is on page 60, the trustees summary does have a statement in there that Ed read at the trustees meeting related to Jason's resignation. In essence, it says that the board did not ask for it. Jason did it on his own to preserve, basically the integrity of the river authority as well as the board itself. His last official board meeting, Jason's, will be tomorrow. At tomorrow's board meeting, they will announce an acting general manager, and then they're going to employ a headhunter for the next 6 to 9 months so they can find a new general manager.
Okay.
The next item I have is on page 25. This is the Woodlands monthly operations report. We've had a couple changes this month that we're starting to do going forward. The first is going to be on the right-hand side towards the middle. On the rolling 12-month water loss, we've actually expanded that. So we show the accounted for water loss, the unaccounted for water loss, and then the total water loss. So you take the accounted for and the unaccounted, you add them together, and that's how you get the total water loss. That way y'all can see the entire picture. Also, what we've done is underneath that, we've added the monthly accounted for water loss. So as we've gone through the water loss, any of the larger water loss numbers we've put in here so you can see where the water loss is going. So in this case, you had just flushings of elevated storage tanks and deaded mains, so on and so forth. But if there is a water leak that had 1 million gallons lost, you would see it in here as well. Now, the reason this is in April and this is not showing for May, even though this is a May report, is because our water loss information is always a month behind. It's based on the billings from your system. So it's the last complete data we have is from April. So every month you're going to be a couple months behind. The next item that we have made an adjustment on is on page 28. This is section 5 of the Woodlands report, and it shows all the projects. And so what we've done for a little bit more clarity is we've gone down for each of the projects that we had listed and we adjusted the form. The form's now going to show a D for like a design. So it'll show the budget for design, the contract for design, and the amount spent on design. Then you'll see one for C, which is construction, the budget for construction, the contract for construction, and amount invoiced to date. Just for a little bit more clarity. So if you have an overrun on design, you can see that instead of just on the overall project. We're also on the far right where it says status, we're adding a little bit more detail there. If we say it's in design or on track, we're expanding that to say it's at 50 or 30% design, 60% design. We're waiting on easements, those type of things. We're adding more information for clarity. Questions so far? Now I'll ask you to turn to page 41. On page 41 through 46, we've received 16 questions from two mud directors on AC water lines. And so what we've done is we've taken those 16 questions and we've answered all but 3. Those 3 questions are 9, 10, and 11. So question number 9, to get the answers, that is about $25,000 in about 6 to 8 weeks. Question number 10, that's about 150,000. It can take about 6 to 9 months. Question 11 goes more into a predictive modeling scenario. And at this time, we do not have the cost estimates for that. So I've been telling the other MUDs with the first 2 numbers that equal up to 175,000. That basically takes the existing data that we have and looks at it a little bit differently. And basically hoping to get different results using the same data. So our recommendation is not to do that. There's not an action item on this, but our recommendation is there's no need to do that. And the one of the individuals estimating these questions agreed as well. Now, the third item goes into a lot more predictive, long-term data gathering, testing of pipelines, pulling pipe out of the ground, testing the pipe, seeing how long the pipe's going to last. There's various articles you can find online. We can send you all that talks about the condition of the pipe, how to test for it, so on and so forth. So that study, the modeling portion, could be 50 to 100,000 easy. We don't know how that number is, just a rough guesstimate. But all the data you have to put into that is where the big bucks are. Could potentially be millions. So one thing to keep in mind, I'm just letting everybody know in case y'all come across articles. If you're going to test the pipe, that's going to tell you how the pipe is doing, right? You're going to take the pipe, you're going to stain the pipe, you're going to crush the pipe. Whatever you're going to do with the pipe, it's going to tell you, hey, this pipe can last another 50 years, 100 years, whatever it may be. There's other parts of the pipeline system that you have to look at. So that pipe is obviously sitting in the ground. So you got to look at the dirt, you got to look at the water that's going through it, you got to look at the installation method. You have to look at the manufacturer of the pipe, right? Just like with PVC and everything. You also have to look at the gaskets. You have to look at the joints. So there's a lot of things to look at besides just how long is this piece of pipe going to last. So it's a lot of information pretty quick, but if you have any questions, I can go through them. Dan and Connie are here. They have more information if you'd like it.
Any questions?
That was an extensive discussion about this. I can save this for the trustee report, but as long as we're on it, let's talk about it.
Okay.
It kind of sucked all the oxygen out of this room, actually, from my perspective, but I don't know that you can get a better answer with data that's either flawed, incomplete, or unattainable for whatever reason. I don't know how you can change an answer. So the people that submitted these comments, I'm sure come from an engineering or pipeline background, and I'm sure they're knowledgeable about pipelines. But it seems to me that if you store an AC pipe in the warehouse for 50 years, it's going to have one set of data as you test it going forward. And as you point out, if you put it in the ground with all these elements and fault lines, subsidence, and all that going on, it's a completely different answer. So I don't know how you equate all that. And all I can equate this to from recent experience is the wastewater treatment plant number 1 and the complaints that came about from odor control at that facility. And then the trustees, through the MUDs, we spent well in excess of 500,000, about 570, as I recall. And we still have not arrived at a acceptable answer. And we decided to defer that further salesmanship from vendors and further analysis to this decision about, what are we going to do with wastewater treatment plant number 1? And there's a meeting on that, by the way, for an update on June 28th. That will not be there. I'll be out of town. So hopefully somebody else can attend for our mud. But that's where I'm coming from on this, just so y'all know. And you're all entitled to a different opinion and give me direction at the appropriate time. What are we waiting for? I'll redirect here. What are we waiting for to provide as far as additional information so that our management can make some reasonable recommendation and for the trustees and directors in general?
For the decision on the 10-year project plan and the financing, or on the further analysis of the pipeline?
What to do about AC pipelines?
Brian, go ahead.
There, in the mud meetings thus far, there's been growing conversation and growing interest in looking at that third option on that sheet, which is to be determined. And that is to build a program to develop the appropriate data that would better serve us to identify the true timing of the need for the pipe. To at least tell us one way or the other, whether it's now or whether it can be put off. There's a number of articles and studies that have been done that have been provided by some folks that we've been reviewing over the last 48 hours or so, where other municipalities that have gone through this have done some different things other than age evaluation. And to a lot of the things that Chris was just saying, you take pieces of the pipe out, you go test it, you put it into this model, and it gives you better data. I think we're agreeing at the moment that the data that we have is not sufficient to throw back into some other model or another desktop study that's really going to give us any appreciable change in the recommendation. So the discussion right now is there a program that we could develop to create more better data that would then be able to be used. So
if I could just interpret what you just said, all we're going to do is test in the future going forward. We may decide that we're going to do 3 tests each quarter or whatever
it is one of the ideas.
So we're talking about an extension of a decision and a cost additive.
Potentially, one of the ideas was to go ahead and get started with the project that's already almost finished in design, which is the town center project that was identified as the most critical one of all of the pieces of it. During that project, perhaps, most of the project is going to be underground rehabilitation through pipe bursting, something like that. But even pipe bursting has bore pits on both ends of the section that you're pipe bursting. And so maybe at the bore pits, you could pull out, the pipe, you got to bust it anyway at that point. And then go through develop some testing protocols, what you're trying to test for, how you're going to do it, develop that data and start collecting that data as you're moving forward, but you're also investigating and identifying for future projects what the condition of the pipe is. Now, granted, that pipe that you're testing, that you're replacing at that moment might be in a different, might have been done, the AC 3 streets over might have been done by a different contractor, different method, who knows?
Right.
Different time, different faults, different, whatever the case may be, different conditions. So, but it may give us some better information that we don't have today, because we don't have data on what the pipe condition is. So that was one of the ideas that was thrown out. No, I don't think any district made any action or did anything like that. There was just been a lot of conversation about it over the last few days.
If I may add a little bit. I'm Connie Curtis. I'm the Director of Technical and Operational Services for the San Jacinto River Authority. Just to kind of So the directors who've been asking for what are the other things that we could commit to do, and we kind of said we can bring back kind of a proposal of what it would take